Do you know the legendary Del Close who
Yeah.
directed Second City Forever? I was studying with him, and he asked me to come
Wow.
audition, and I was given the 9 a.m. audition spot, which is the best time to be funny. And and it was me and some other guy who is lost to history. Don't know what happened, but we're on the famed Second City stage, and this is your improv. Go.
Right.
One line into my improv, and if I was hooked up to electrodes, I couldn't tell you what it was about. But I just know that one line in, boom, swinging like saloon doors. Cops come in, freeze.
Oh my God!
Run to Del, cuff him. And I'm thinking, is this something they do?
Dystopia tonight. Dystopia tonight.
Hey,
how are you? I wish I was in Chicago. It's LA and London.
LA and London. You know what's crazy? I think you said Chicago like for a half a second backstage, and then I just stuck.
That's all right. It's a great place to be from.
That's true.
And
where did you start out?
Between May and October, it's the nicest place in the world.
That's true. Yeah. Any other time, it's not. I used to go do gigs. I was dating somebody. My girlfriend went to law school in Chicago, which worked out well because I was always, I was doing the Laugh Factory. But like going out there, I just remember like you would turn a corner and you wouldn't realize that the wind was being blocked by the building you were in front of.
Yeah.
And just the intense cold. And I just remember like cursing the entire time I was there. Like, who the fuck would live here? Like in the winter? Like, it's brutal.
Yes, there would be many. That was probably my most spiritual, because I would literally negotiate with God standing in the platform. Get me home and I will do anything.
Right.
I don't care.
Yeah.
Whatever you want.
And it didn't matter like how many layers you were wearing, because you still had to have a face, like some part of your face exposed.
Yeah, your nostrils had to
be,
but they'd freeze, so you die that way,
I think what was really depressing to me was I saw a dog in a nicer sweater than I will probably ever own in my entire life. Like, he was tied outside and he was wearing this beautiful, and I was like, I almost wanted to be like, where the fuck did you get that sweater? like you tell me, and I'll go, is it affordable? What are you thinking?
But you know what? A great city for comedy.
Yes, absolutely.
City for comedy. I grew up at Second City.
Nice. That's where you started?
I started studying there when I was a kid, and I was the first show I saw there. I was 12, and you weren't. I was reversed.
Wow.
You had to be 21, but they sneaked me in, and it was George Wendt and Tim Kazurinsky and Bill Murray and Jerry Candy and just the funniest people in the world. And then, do you know the legendary Del Close who directed Second City Forever? I was studying with him, and he asked me to come audition, and I was given the 9 a.m. audition spot, which is the best time to be funny. And it was me and some other guy who is lost to history. Don't know what happened, but we're on the famed Second City stage, and this is your improv. Go.
Right.
One line into my improv, and if I was hooked up to electrodes, I couldn't tell you what it was about. But I just know that one line in, boom, swinging like saloon doors. Cops come in, freeze.
Oh my God.
Run to Del, cuff him. And I'm thinking, is this something they do? Like, make sure you're not
in the moment.
You're focused. You're staying there. And God bless, Bernie Salins and Joyce Sloan, who ran the theater at that time. They just go, keep going. And the cops are pulling him out. And so, the audition got canceled, postponed. And at the time, I was working on a play that I'd written with a dear, dear friend of mine, Jerry Hazelmeyer. And it ended up running. We figured it was going to run for 6 weeks. It ran for a couple of years, and it got me to California. So I never had a chance to audition again.
Oh my God, that is the craziest audition story I think I've ever heard. That's not. Did you ever did you follow up and find out what happened, or like what was?
I did, but it's all alleged, you know.
Oh, okay.
And anybody, I mean, if you've read anything about Del Close's life, anything that actually happened is
right.
You know, there are 9 stories that that also actually happened that are wilder than this.
Sure.
One.
Yeah, exactly. It's just so funny. I feel like I would have been like, how do I follow up on this? do I ask about the cop thing first, or do I just go, do you want me to come back and audition, or like that would have been a weird.
That's sort of the actor thing. Like, do you want an up tempo now?
Like how that's so crazy to me too, because that's the thing that I feel like I'm always not sure when to follow up, because like everybody in show business is so moody or temperamental. Like one day they could be like, you know, like right in there, they love you, they love your thing or whatever, and they're like, definitely call me next Tuesday, and then you call them next Tuesday and they just happen to be in a shit mood, so they hate you, you know, whatever it is.
Well, that's what I call you next Tuesday as a sort of
exactly. I can't imagine having that situation and then having to figure out how to skate around it and be like, you remember me? I was, you know.
Yeah, you know, I just felt, I was certain that, okay, I'll do this play for 6 weeks and then it'll be over and then I'll come back and audition. And
right.
Life took another turn, which was lovely. But yeah, it would have been.
How long were you writing before you auditioned for Second City, though? Because you've been working on this play the whole time?
I started working on it again with my friend Jerry. I was in a biology class at Northwestern University in a big, 500 seat, kind of class where everybody in an auditorium, and I'd be in the back row paying no attention whatsoever, writing scenes for this play.
Yeah.
And, because I sort of knew that it was highly unlikely that I was ever going to split an atom or dissect a frog, but I would know where to put the good joke, or the character structure or whatever. So that's sort of where I paid attention. And I, took the class pass fail, wrote most of the book on my lapboard and barely passed.
Yeah, I feel like we had the same.
What you want to do?
You know what? I feel like that's the advice that some need to hear, though. Anytime I remember, when you were in school, you would get to these assemblies or whatever, and whoever the speaker was just so not somebody I connected with, because they were like, your ambitions and if you work hard, but it was always academically and never anything that I could relate to. And I feel like that's actually what some kids do need to hear, is like, because I was the same way. Like, I know, I sucked in math, and after a while, I was good in science, but after a while, science just becomes more math. So then initially I sucked in that too, but I just kind of made peace with it, where I was like, yeah, I'm never gonna do any of that shit. And so I just concentrated on the things I liked.
Well, it's like, I mean, school just, there are many, good things about an education, as we're seeing in the world now. Education is needed, but that, doesn't always correlate with certain things in school,
Right.
And I was thinking about it today. My car died today in a very, very sad way. It needs a funeral. And I brought it in to my mechanic, who took a look at it and he said, I thought you were going to get rid of this piece of shit. I blamed it on the supply chain, but that wasn't it. And I went back to, I have this sort of flashback often, that when I was, in junior high school, I made a petition. I wanted to take auto shop. And for some reason, if you had a vagina, you couldn't take auto shop. You had to take sewing, where I would make ponchos, because it was just, you take a big piece of cloth. And I somehow knew at the age of 11 that I would never wear another poncho, but I might need to know how to powder. And God, I was right, so it just makes me crazy that I turn into a girl when it comes to cars, and that makes me upset.
Wow. Yeah. I remember my class, for whatever reason, I don't even know how anybody makes this decision, but whatever my grade was, we were the last ones to get home ec classes, and I didn't even know that was like a thing that they were getting rid of, but I just remember having to sew and then learn also cooking and all that other shit. And then when I would go to talk to people who were behind us or whatever, they'd be like, what are you talking about? And I'd be like, you didn't have to build a birdhouse or fucking make a pillow or anything like that. And they'd be like, no. And I'm like, oh wow. And even not even a car, we didn't get any car classes for us. It was, they didn't give a shit about whether we knew how to live at all. It was just like, can you figure out for X? And I'm like, no.
Well, in New Jersey, aren't you essentially born driving?
Yeah, I think
someone needs a getaway driver, and it might as well be a 5-year-old.
Yeah, I think they teach everybody in New Jersey how to drive so we can leave. I feel like they're like, you're not going to be able to afford to live here, so you should probably figure out how to get out of here.
I've actually heard that New Jersey is the new Brooklyn.
Yeah, that really makes it. In that Italians aren't taking care of the property they own. Yes, because that is 100% accurate. Yeah, it's upsetting. So you did that play and you were writing that or whatever. Was that your that's what kickstarted your writing career? How did that go?
It kickstarted my professional writing career, sort of. I mean, I truly did. Wasn't very good, but I wrote my first play when I was 7.
Oh, wow.
And
Beautiful.
I realized what I used to do. I'm sounding like I hate education, and I actually loved education.
Right.
But I would fake being sick so that I could stay home from school and watch the Dick Van Dyke Show in the afternoon reruns.
The best, yes.
And I became friends with Rosemarie at the end of her life.
No way.
Yeah, and I used to. I remember saying to her once, I would pretend to my mom that I was sick so that I could stay home and watch your show. And I just knew that I was going to be like you, that I was going to be like the girl in that room with the guys telling jokes. And she said, "You were smarter to do this because that taught you much more than school ever would."
Oh, wow. Yeah, I agree.
And boy, did she have stories. I mean, her career until she died a few years ago. Her career started the night that the jazz singer debuted as the first talkie.
Yeah.
A soundie with her as a little baby was also on the bill.
Wow.
I mean, that's how far,
Wow.
and her biggest fans was Al Capone.
Oh, that I read. Yeah.
And he would pick her up and she'd be like 6, 7 years old and she'd sing for the boys at dinner.
Wow.
And, I just love talking to people who've been in this business because everybody has such strange stories.
I know, and I like that, and I feel like I have mixed feelings about all this kind of stuff, but I feel like sometimes that's dying out in a bit of a way. Because as soon as you said that she was Al Capone's favorite, could you imagine if it was that kind of situation today? How traumatized, quote unquote, somebody might be. Like they would not have made it to maybe where Rosemarie,
who's comparable? I mean, maybe you'd play for the Republican GOP, and that's the equivalent of Capone.
Yeah, yeah. Exactly.
I mean,
the White House Correspondents' Dinner or whatever during a But yeah, I really enjoyed when she joined. Obviously, she probably had somebody writing for her, but Twitter, because I really kind of liked how sweet and appreciative she was and surprised she was that she would get so many followers. And I guess somebody was letting her know what kind of responses, because it was very joyous, I think, at the time, especially I think at that time anyway, when things seemed so shitty, you know what I mean? Like it was just nice to see somebody of her stature or whatever and just kind of enjoying whatever the end of her, not the end of her career, but she had that documentary coming out. She seemed very appreciative.
Yeah, she was so happy when the movie came out.
Yeah.
And another similar performer was an amazing documentary about that same sort of career, where it was great career, always worked, did Broadway, did TV, did movies, but never quite at the A level. There's a fantastic documentary about Kay Ballard.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
What's it called?
And it's just, I'm not sure what it's called. I saw it during the last zombie apocalypse that we just went through. And I love that your show is called Dystopia.
Thank you.
Because that's where we are.
Oh, yeah.
We have to own it. We have to try to make it better, but we have to totally own it.
I agree. That's why I felt like if you just steer right, I like to steer into shit, no matter what it is. I'm like, if I'm depressed, I'm like, here we go. We're taking this ride, whatever it is. And
your opening credits, I want to have, just angry sex to your opening credits.
That is the best compliment I've gotten on the opening credits. I love that. Oh,
it's just great.
Thank you so much. That is genuinely the best response I've gotten to it.
That is one of the biggest compliments we've had of it. We've had some good compliments, but
we really have, and that fucking got me right in the gut. That's great. It's crazy as you're talking because we have a lot in common, especially with the school and stuff. I love the Dick Van Dyke Show. I always say the Dick Van Dyke Show is what made me want to pretend to be a writer.
Oh, totally.
Like
and everyone has told him that.
Yes.
You tell him that, and he has that look in his eye, like,
right.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
This is the 9th person today who's told me that, but it's the truth.
Right.
I wrote a tribute to him once. He got a Lifetime Achievement Award, and Conan presented to him, and I wrote this speech for Conan, and never met him before, still never really met him, and I was told, oh, he's going to change everything, and he didn't change a syllable, but it was just, we all dreamed of being in that room.
Yeah, absolutely.
Being with the smartest, funniest people around.
Yep.
And God bless Carl Reiner. God bless those writers who, one of whom was Gary Marshall, who discovered me and brought me out here. And
I know. Wow.
And that cast. I mean, that cast was just impeccable, and Dick's still doing it.
I know. I love that, man. I've been trying so hard to get him. First of all, I've been trying to meet him for like the longest time. When I first moved out to LA, I met with my manager had set me up with Lori Jonas, who's I don't know if you know what Lori Jonas is, but she does like Jonas. She's a PR person. Yes, PR.
My friend Jeff is
Abram.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, great.
Yeah.
So then he just got us a guest. We just got Ron James and Kelly Carlin not too long ago. But I got to go hang out there or whatever, and she kind of took me on a little bit or whatever. But she told me where Dick lived, and she was like, I think you'd get along. Like, so just drive over there, and if he's And I was like, you really let me know where he lives? I don't even know I should be saying this on the show. But I drove out to Malibu. Of course, he was at like he was somewhere doing something awesome at the time or whatever. But I just thought how insane it was that I drove into the area hoping I'd be like, is anybody seeing Dick Van Dyke? But he wasn't there. And then,
he's a lovely, lovely man. He's married to an amazing woman. And
she seems lovely too. Yeah.
He's a sweetheart. And
awesome.
He's one of those rare celebrities that, first of all, everyone in the world loves. I think ISIS loves him, and if it ever came down to like the entire country being nuked, if we showed them, Dick Van Dyke's here, we'd be safe,
Oh yeah.
But he is that guy, Another interesting thing about being in this business is you work with lots of people and you find out that some people are just who you want them to be and others are something else.
Yeah. No, I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah.
And that's the best part too, is when you find out they are exactly who they like, who was somebody who was just as perfectly curmudgeonly wonderful was Ed Asner, who he was exactly who you wanted him to be, or you imagined him to be when you got to talk to him and meet him and stuff. And that was like a nice surprise.
I've been watching old Mary Tyler Moore shows.
Nice.
Also wonderful. And many of them written by my dear friend Shriva Silverman.
Oh yeah.
And just a lot of those shows hold up. They, they were a little more topical than Dick Van Dyke. Dick Van Dyke totally holds up. There's maybe 3 topical jokes in the 5 years that show was on.
Right.
And invariably they're Kennedy jokes, which are sort of funny.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Which everybody kind of still goes, oh yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
It's amazing how well that show holds up. I've showed it to my friends who would, or they're kind of skeptical. They're like, oh, it's in black and white and it's an old sitcom. And I'm like, just shut the fuck up and watch it. And when they do, they can't help but laugh. And I'm like, exactly.
That's they're brilliant. They're just they're so well written. And there's a few. I mean, again, God bless Carl Reiner. They were making racial equality points.
Yeah.
In 1963.
Yep.
Other shows weren't doing that.
Yeah. Was the first time they did, was it the one where they accidentally dye their hands?
Yeah.
I love that one.
They accidentally dye their hands black and they're supposed to go to a racial equality.
Yeah. That was such a good episode.
And now it's kind of quaint, but in 1963, that was radical stuff. And then there's the other one where they think they have the wrong baby.
The wrong baby. Oh my God.
And it was Greg Morris's joke where he comes in with his wife, and that laugh was so long they had to cut it.
Wow, that I didn't know. Holy shit.
Yeah. And it's just, the networks were very, very, very nervous about that. And it's just, what a great joke.
Yeah, absolutely.
Again, the look, he opens the door, the look on Dick's face.
Oh God.
And then he goes, why didn't you tell me on the phone? And Morris goes, and miss the expression on your face.
Right.
Another great thing, which is giving, stars who are secure enough to give a laugh that big.
Oh yeah.
To somebody who's got an under 5 part.
Yeah.
That's when you get a classic show, is when everybody is allowed to shine and not just, set up the person whose name is on the title.
Right. I want to go back to you. You'd mentioned Gary Marshall was the one who kind of brought you out. So how did that relationship begin?
Okay. As I said before, I'm a wildcat. I went to Northwestern, and as did Gary. And I had a wonderful professor who was a dear, dear, dear friend of mine, Bob Pickerney. And Bob knew Gary, and he brought Gary to campus to teach, talk about TV writing. This, this is when he was the king of television, and he was just starting to go into movies. Wow. And a couple of students, myself included, got invited to be in some seminars with him where he'd give us an old Happy Days script or something like that. And we would just sit and we'd do a table, and he'd teach us how to do a table and how to, break a scene and how to make this better. And at the time I was doing one of the foolish things I did in my teenage years is a lot of improvisation. You do it, you hope your parents don't find out, and you go past it. But so I was in the Northwestern Meow Show, which is a famous, comedy review. Very, in those days, very Second City. But it was one of those sort of things where it would be 19 boys and 2 girls. Right. They'd spend most of the time when we'd be on stage, beating us up, So I started a group. I did a show called, really original title, Broadside. Get it? And it wasn't the opposite. I just tried it with four guys and 4 girls. And one of the guys in it, his first improv show was Gary Kroeger, who went on to do SNL. Yeah. Another was Ira Glass.
Oh my God, no way.
National Public Radio. Yeah.
That's crazy.
And we did the show, and I wrote most of the sketches, and I directed it, and I was one of the 4 women. And Gary came to see it. Wow. And he pulled me aside afterwards, and we were in this little Quonset hut on North Campus that had been like a crunchy granola coffee house years before, and had been sitting, fallow since hippies went somewhere else. And he just started talking to me, and he said, okay, this scene worked, and this is why it worked, and this was your best line, and that. He just remembered everything. Wow. With this incredible photographic memory. And occasionally he'd go, okay, this line worked, but it would have been better if you'd put a pause here or a comma here, or call it a chicken instead of a dog or whatever. Right. And he spent so much time with me. And then I told him I was writing this play. And he said, I'll be in town in 6 months, and I'll come see it. And I said, well, wow. It's only going to run for 6 weeks. And I'll never forget this. He said, you wrote it, it'll be running. Wow. And it was. And shortly, sometime thereafter, I got a phone call from him one day, and he just said, hello, you're ready. Wow. I need you in LA in a month. I'm putting you, at the time, he put me on Laverne and Shirley, and he said, I'm putting you on this show because you're nice. He goes, everybody there hates everybody. He goes, they will call you shithead. They will throw a chair at you. Don't worry. And God bless him. That's how my career got started out here.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Do you prefer, because I still want to go into the writing stuff, but I know you've written for individual comedians.
I have, usually special material, or if they're appearing I write a lot of award shows and galas and things like that.
Yeah. And then you've also been in the writer's room, because I've done the latter. I've written for comedians individually, and I've gotten like, I'm usually just doing it by myself for the most part. Like any kind of TV show thing, whatever it is, they'll send you a packet and you do it. I've never been in a writer's room collaboratively. Do you like one better than the other? Is there a difference in joke?
It's different. I mean, the great thing, and I know you know this just because you're a comic, and you've done a lot of things, like we were talking about that event you did with comics. Just when there are that many funny people in a room, it changes the oxygen. And also, we're very competitive people, and it gets your adrenaline going. Right. So I did a table once for a Steve Martin movie, and it was just bing boom bam boom, and it was so much fun because everybody came with their little crib sheets because we'd all read the script, and it's like, well, I think maybe here, about a minor bird might be funny,
right?
But the minute somebody throws something out, then somebody tops it, then somebody tops it, then somebody tops it, and then somebody breaks the moment, and then you start with a new one, and it's an energy that is so thrilling when it goes well.
Wow.
And there are also moments where things die, the death of a dog, but you have to own that as well. You have to own when you really stink.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, God. Yeah. That's just almost necessary, even for your own ego, to be like, I fucking suck tonight. Is there like a scribe in the room? Like who is it? Okay.
Yeah, there's always, and those are writing assistants, which have become such hot jokes,
Yeah.
Very talented young comic. I know Amelia Barras started out in the Veep writer's room in the last season of the show. She was on the staff,
Oh, wow.
And but yeah, that's a hard job because again, you're soothing the savage beasts,
right?
And what was fun about when you have the honor of doing that for somebody like Steve, who was running things, you'll say something sometime, and then all of a sudden he'll stand up and he'll start doing it or miming it or making it happen,
right?
And it's like I have this seat where I'm watching the smartest, funniest man in the world. And it's something that I had a seed of, and it's amazing.
Right.
It's orgasmic, it's so thrilling to see comedy happen. And so, yeah, I mean, and sitting in a room, the difference between sitting in a room is you don't have that adrenaline from other people. So you have to find some sort of way, which, to me, usually comes after scrubbing toilets or something, because I don't want to look at my computer screen, so I'll be anything else.
Yep, I know. That's always the interesting part, is who's around you. Like I've literally, I think at some point when my regular, when my core group of friends isn't around for me to bounce shit off of, if I'm doing anything like that, I like start going through like my 3rd grade yearbook, and I'm like, who haven't I spoken to?
Yeah,
that could ignite a fire real quick.
Well, you don't have braces anymore. Okay, that was dated. Okay, yeah. All right.
Like, why are you calling? Did somebody we know die? I'm like, no, just
Just I
working
was
on a
wondering.
thing.
I was thinking about a chicken. Some Thai food and a sofa. You go with me on this?
Right? Yeah, exactly. And they're like, "Who is this? What?" Oh, that's awesome. So you were doing Laverne and Shirley. What was your net? Was it just? Would you go from series to series after that, or did you try to do your own stuff? Because you never did.
I did after that. I did some episodes for some Norman Lear shows, and
Nice.
I did a pilot for him that was 40 years ahead of its time. He basically hired me in the 80s to write what now belongs on TikTok. And there was no room for that then. There was no understanding of it.
Wow.
So unfortunately, it was an amazing experience, but it was just way ahead of its time. And I'm actually trying to think of a way of bringing it back now, because now there are places where something this odd might work.
That's cool. And this is something you and he collab, like you kind of worked out
he
together?
He had an idea for what he wanted the format to be,
and
I created it and the the character and this and that.
That's incredible.
And that was fun.
Nice.
And I'm working for tomorrow. Ann Slichter and I, wonderful comedy writer Ann Slichter. We wrote the Sentinel Awards, which are airing tomorrow.
Oh, nice.
On the World Wide Web, where all the shows are. That's where Lucy would have been today. She would.
Yeah, yeah. Especially with TikTok. It's funny. I feel like there's a lot of comedies that I've seen that have a genuine problem kind of writing in a natural way the social media stuff like Snapchat, but the two that I think that have done it the best so far, I don't know if you've seen Ted Lasso yet.
Right
one of the best shows just on TV now, but like in the last, I don't know, 6-7 years, like it's so good.
All I need to do to live the rest of my life happy is find out that somewhere centuries ago I share some DNA with Brett Goldstein.
Yeah,
that's all I care about.
I understand that.
But people now are kind of, because there's always this when something somebody loves, like, oh, it's not that good anymore. Fuck you, it's great.
I know, exactly.
It's brilliant writing,
right?
Brilliant characters, brilliant performing. It never goes the way you think it's going to go.
Yep, exactly.
Which is so amazing.
That's my favorite thing, is watching something like that, and then the minute my brain goes, oh, okay, they're going to drag this out, and they don't, like, it stops short, like they immediately have the characters like hash something out real quick. I'm like, holy fuck, like this is amazing. Where are they going to go? What are they going to do now? And the thing with the like they do the texting really well. They don't have to, like, it's so integrated well with that. And then also Only Murders in the Building does the texting kind of, social thing really, really well. Others like make a blatant, like they just kind of say it. Like, I'm using the Snapchat now, and you're just like, oh God, that is not how any of us.
We're talking now,
Yeah, exactly. You're like, Jesus Christ.
But yeah, no, Lasso is. I came into it late. I started watching it shortly before the second season began.
Same.
So my husband and I think we watched the first season over 2 views.
Yeah.
Because we couldn't stop.
Same.
It was just too good.
And that's like, what's cool about that too is, well, obviously Jason Sudeikis is incredible, but Bill Lawrence, who's behind it, I was a huge fan of Scrubs, and I feel like that show was brilliant, and I think still underrated, but like it's the same kind of, I think it's very hard to do nice, like they're nice, it's nice comedy, you know what I mean? Like, I don't even mean, like, I love the other kind too, because Jason Sudeikis can turn a snarky remark, either it being definitely cutting, but the way he plays Ted Lasso is, it just rolls off of him in just this very affable way. And I think that's the difference. And it's just very sweet.
I'm going to say something that might pour a big load of, syrup on the screen, and I apologize in advance.
Do it.
But one of the many things I really do like about that show is that it is so smart and so funny and so positive.
Yeah, agreed.
It's nice. And I don't want everything to be that.
No.
But again, going back to the dystopian hellscape that is all of our lives, everything right now.
Yeah.
I can't imagine. It's almost as if one demonic person showed up about 5 years ago and suddenly everything is dark and evil and nasty. I don't know. But that would be too unrealistic.
Right. Yeah. No, I can't imagine. You sound crazy. Cut the interview. Yeah. I won't have that talk.
But yeah, I mean, there are times when comedy can be positive and can be nice and can be, so there's, again, Dick Van Dyke, Mary Tyler Moore, those kinds of people. Those shows were hilarious and they were built on love.
Yeah. And that's what I think is like my friends and I are like the same way. It's crazy because we do have we grew up on Scrubs, and then but that was one of the first shows I think I watched, because I love that 70s show too. Like that was a good one, but that wasn't like, but when we had Scrubs, it was one of those moments where like you're watching that show where you would be fucking belly over, like just gut bust laughing, and then they'd have you crying 2 seconds, like, you know what I mean? Like I'd just be in tears and I'd be like, what the fuck? You know what I mean? And I love that combination. You don't get that a lot.
I grew up on no Scrubs.
Oh my God. So what? So you did. You never did stand up, right? You just did the improv instead.
I've done stand up twice in my life,
Mm-hmm.
and I wanted, and I'm actually putting more sets together. What I do is when I do one woman shows,
mm-hmm.
this is I'm sort of channeling. I'm very into nostalgia right now. I'm sort of channeling the Ed Sullivan Show. There are lots of jokes, lots of comedy, but then I sing.
Oh, nice.
Sometimes I sing, songs, and sometimes I sing funny songs that I write or that I rewrite because I don't write music.
Mm-hmm.
So, so I've rewritten a lot of songs.
Nice.
And and a lot of it is political, a lot of it is feminist, but I mean, if you come to one of my shows, there's lots and lots and lots of comedy and lots of jokes, but I've never, again, with two exceptions, been on stage where I've just talked.
Mm-hmm.
And I really like it, actually. Yeah. And I have a lot of material, and I'm just looking for some time to put it together and do more of that, and sort of ease some of the music out a little bit.
Nice. What's your favorite song that you've kind of rewritten, and used?
Well, let's see. In the last election, the song "You'll Be Gone" from Hamilton.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Excuse me, You'll Be Back. I wrote it,
right,
You'll Be Gone, and it was about that guy. And
oh, nice.
I did a whole thing with green screen and this and that, and just about how, what I basically said is, you say the number of votes won't determine if you walk away.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember the lyric, but it was just basically saying that you'll never concede, and you'll pretend that you lost. What was I thinking? And but you're gonna lose, and you'll be gone.
Yeah.
And you'll be gone. Can't ignore, when Bill bars, disbarred, can't bar the door. That sort of thing.
That's awesome.
And then two of my favorites are because I love boomer humor. I have the middle age of Aquarius, which is now the old age of Aquarius, and Carole King parody about plastic surgery and the women in my neighborhood, of unnatural women.
That's great.
So yes.
Did you find it? I was watching. Did you see the CNN documentary that they did? Or that wasn't a documentary, I guess, but it was the series that they did about like a history of the sitcom, I think.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people, because I was talking to people about it or whatever, and they were kind of surprised, either annoyed at how many times they referenced some kind of political aspect of the show. And I think it's funny that people missed it while they were watching it.
Yeah.
Because I saw it growing up, those themes and those constant mentions, that kind of stuff. But I think it was maybe subtler. Were you guys, was it harder to write where you had to sneak it in almost like subversively into the episodes, as opposed to now where I feel like when you're writing stuff, you can be way more blatant about it?
Well, yes and no. It again, it depends on the characters. And I never write a joke just because, now I want to write a joke about cheese. I always write something that's going to be funny coming out of a specific person's mouth.
Right.
You can't write a joke for Ted Lasso that you would write for Rebecca.
Sure. Yeah.
Because they're very different people,
Mm-hmm.
So it's so if you have somebody's honest perspective, you can say things as they would say them, that depending on how they see the world, can sneak in something that isn't quite as blatant.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like anything else. It's the 64 Crayolas in the box. It's excuse me. It's fun to color with them all.
Nice. That's a good way to put it.
Sort of how I feel about writing. I never like to do the same thing all the time.
Right. Is there a certain kind of do you do anything in between? Because you've written for I could actually almost really want to just list them out, but you've written for so many different comedians and for different occasions. And they each have a very specific, I've noticed in that list that you have, everybody's got a very particular voice and a particular delivery style. Is there anything you do for yourself to kind of go, how close in between writing for somebody do you have to switch and go, you know, I'm doing Lily Tomlin, now I'm doing Steve Martin, now I'm doing something for Paul McCartney. Like, is it just easy for you at this point where you're just like, I got this, like I can figure out their voice?
Well, it's just you have to know what their voice is.
Sure.
You know, so the people you've named, you know, they've given me lessons my entire life in what they sound like. And Lily's hard because when I've written for Lily, I've written for Lily. Right. And she doesn't enjoy being Lily as much as she enjoys being the 6,000 characters that she does so brilliantly.
Right.
And the thing that has always blown me away about her that I don't think I've never seen anyone else do is, you know, she'll be like this, and then she'll move, you know, her eyebrow, you know, 40 degrees, and she's a completely different person.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
It's just this staggering brilliance, and it's always true, and it's always dimensional, and that's why it's interesting that they're bringing back the Search for Signs of Intelligent Life with Cecily Strong. Because I've told this to Lily, the first time I saw it, I cried so hard watching it. I had to come back later that week because I'd missed too much.
Wow.
You know, because it was just so staggering. And she called me once, and I almost drove off the road because she's like, I want you to write this thing for me. And you know, I said, you know, you're married to like the best writer who's ever lived, you know. And she said, well, she does brilliant things for me, but you know, you can do this. And you know, and she's just, you know, amazing. And again, honest and vulnerable really get to me. Yeah. Because I think, you know, there are a lot of comics that can come on stage and they like to proclaim that they are a character and that, you know, oh, I'm nothing like the person I am on stage. And invariably, I don't find that as interesting as someone who's just really being true to themselves.
Yeah.
You know, and that can be, you know, as sweet, you know, as Steve Martin can be, or as caustic as Lenny Bruce can be. But both of them have, you know, this amazing vulnerability.
Is there anybody that you haven't gotten to write for that you really wanted to, like a missed up, you know?
Well, there's lots of people. The cast of Ted Lasso.
We'll just send out everything we've said about him. That's amazing. We'll just be like,
exactly. Brett, I'm your cousin. You don't know me. Off the top of my head, no, but you know, every day somebody, you know, pops up and it's like, oh, I'd love to write for that person, or you know. And I never actually wrote for Sir Paul. He read something that I had written about the history of part of his life that he really liked, and he said, oh, you got it right. You know, I really love it. So that was real nice. That's a nice way to meet your idol. Yeah. You know? Yeah. So I'm sitting there with saliva drooling on the floor.
So you also do your cabaret stuff. How much do you find it, like, not that you would get annoyed, but like, is there stuff in projects that you wanted to work on for yourself, like where you find yourself concentrating on maybe other comedians and other comedians' work and stuff like that, where you're like, man, I really need time to do my thing? Do you find that frustrating, or do you make your own time?
You know, everything is the best thing in life is being too busy. The worst thing in life is I have 3 days to write this thing. Oh, what's that on the Netflix? You know, I'll just watch a little bit of this, you know, this Squid Game thing, you know.
Oh, dude, the Squid Game shit. Holy mother of God. I mean, we were just talking about that.
That's who I want to write for. I want to write Squid Game the musical.
Can you not dub it? Because that's frustrating the shit out of me.
Yeah, that would be fun, you know. But yeah, just to not avoid your question, when you're really busy, sometimes things get a little crazy.
Yeah.
like I'm having a really, really crazy week this week, and my car deciding to die on me was a sad moment.
Right.
But and I had a little nutty earlier today. I was like, no. But you know, it's sort of like keep going. You know, the cops are coming through the door, but keep going. You know, and that's the fun. You know, and it's just. A lot of times I think of the guys who used to have the plates spinning on the poles, you know.
Oh yeah.
You just got to keep all the plates spinning, and that's takes a lot of energy, but when you do it, it's, it works.
Yeah.
So I do need to perform more, and I must put this set together because I do have the material, and I've used bits of it in my live shows. And I've been asked to perform in London next month,
That's gonna be my
which
next
I'm
question.
excited about because it's just, this is so dorky, but it's like you're back, in gym in second grade, and where no one would pick me because who would want this person on your team? No,
I understand.
No. But this is just the goofiest thing. I've been asked to be in a concert in the West End of Godspell.
Oh my God.
Which is just hilarious because I've always loved that musical, it's just this dorky wonder. I'm very into the 60s and the 70s. And that's just a great thing from that moment in time. And then I do a lot, my cabaret has a lot of 60s stuff in it. I do a show called How Groovy Girls Save the World. And it's about all these wonderful, Dusty Springfield, Carole King, Laura Nyro, Joni Mitchell, Leslie Gore, Carly Simon, and how Mama Cass, can't forget her, how they changed the world for women. And so even though there's a lot of ridiculously wonderful old music in it, it's always about now and how it affects now.
Right.
And because I also think, I love keeping up with, what people are doing now, but I'm a pop historian, and I like, sort of looking at great people.
Yeah. And I feel like I've always been, this is gonna sound wrong, but I feel like I've always been old, like in that, like, even when I was like, because my mom basically was the one who, like, I love, 60s, 70s, 80s music. I love, my friends used to get into my car in high school if they were borrowing it to go to lunch, and whatever was blown out on the radio was like, was something from, Linda Ronstadt, you know what I mean? Like something like, they'd be like, what the fuck? It wasn't Eminem or anything like that, growing up, which I like. But again, like, I just like, Joni Mitchell and all that stuff too. And I was watching the Fran Lebowitz documentary, and she had said something that I just loved, because she was like, younger people today run up to me and they always ask me what the 60s and 70s were like. And she goes, when I was younger, we didn't run up to anybody older than us and go, what were the 30s and like I think it's
the Depression. What fun did you have?
Exactly.
And that march towards fascism,
Yeah. Exactly. And I think that does speak to, like, I mean, and not to say that we don't have great artists and stuff like that today, but it was
something real special. And I mean, and the 80s were just, I found all these pictures. I sort of went through a Wham period, where I sort of looked like I was trying to channel, George Michael, and it was wrong on every level. But
now I want to see those photos.
You
do know that, right?
There, with the shoulder pads and the T-shirt and the magenta that glowed in the dark and all that. It's like, okay.
Wait, to shut me up, they would put on Wake Me Up Before You Go, because I think that was right around the time. Like, I used to sit in front of the TV and watch MTV and like wait for that. And one time, I think my mother had recorded it, and so when I was being too chatty, which I always was as a kid, they were just like, "Jesus, shut the fuck," and they'd pop in that tape, and I would just be like, "That's like the song that used to drive people crazy."
He was great.
Yeah,
he was just great, and
well, even those documentaries that you see on like the 60s and 70s and shit like that, like the ones that the Laurel Canyon, like all that stuff, it just seems like a very unique period in time that doesn't happen anymore.
I'm going to do a Laurel Canyon cabaret, and I mean, that takes you everywhere from, Frank Zappa to Mickey Dolenz to Joni Mitchell and Carole King. It's just
Graham Nash.
Yeah. I mean, it's just amazing to think that all those people were essentially neighbors, and
right.
Can I borrow a cup of mescaline? Sure, why not? And
was there any equivalent to that in the comedy community and in the writing community back then?
Well, I wasn't around back then.
No, I know, but I'm speaking to the historian in you, because I don't even know. Like,
well, yes. I mean, there certainly was, in the Second City community, and all the Chicago people. I mean, that's an extended family.
Sure.
And I mean, I talked to David Steinberg, and
I just did a print interview with him.
Yeah, God, I worshipped him.
Yeah, he's great.
And Robert Klein, who I think is one of the funniest men who've ever lived.
Absolutely.
And I've talked about this a little bit with Jay Leno as well, who he's a comedy evangelist.
Yes.
There's nothing else in the, he likes cars, but comedy is the only thing in the world.
Right.
And it's kind of fascinating to me how these people, at a time when things were so competitive, there was still a sense of, well, we're all gonna, it's that Broadway Danny Rose thing, we're all gonna meet. In those days, it was the deli,
Oh, sure.
We're gonna, talk till 3 a.m. And that's why so many comics have tried to bring that to TV, and sometimes it's worked.
Right.
Because again, comics talking to other comics is funny and interesting and energetic. And in a perfect world, it's supportive, despite the fact that there are times when, the competition can get a little tight,
Right.
But yeah, I mean, I do think, there is a lot of, compassion and trying to raise each other up, for most people. I try not to concentrate on the people who are, a Cholet.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the smartest thing to do, because otherwise you get you can get wrapped up in that kind of shit, and it seems horrible.
Yeah.
I like the idea. I like the dichotomy between the Laurel Canyon thing of all the musicians kind of having this hippie wonderland and comedians having Cat's Deli. or
exactly. Like granola or pastrami. It's but comedy, I mean, it's funny that I'm talking about nice comedy, because in an odd way, that's so diametrically opposed to what's funny. I mean, pain is funny. What our insecurities and our depression and all the things that make us, dorky and unfit for human company is what make us funny. But it also does create a community.
Yeah. It's weird, because I feel like now, especially with, kind of everything that's going on in the, I guess, maybe not, comedy's not necessarily fractured, but you know what I mean? There seemed to be just with the recent thing with Chappelle and all that other stuff, I've always felt that comedy was inclusive, in that, everybody was up for grabs for being made fun of, but when you took it in stride, that was the inclusiveness of it. Everybody got a hit, everybody got a thing. And now I feel like over the last maybe 10 years or whatever, it's grown into, you cannot say anything about A, B, C, and D. And I feel like that separates people. Do you feel like, you know what I'm saying? I'm not saying I understand the difference between a cruelty kind of a thing and doing that kind of shit. But I also feel like if you separate yourself from being able to be made fun of observationally or kind of just ribbed a little bit, it creates a really bad vibe. I don't know if that makes sense. What I'm saying?
Two things I think about that, because again, I live in the world and I want to be a decent person.
Same, yeah.
I want to show compassion and all that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But, the reason I'm funny is that, essentially I love myself, but I hate myself. I just hate myself.
Right.
And an awful lot of my comedy, surprise, is self-deprecating. And that works
Same.
for me.
Yeah.
It makes me feel better, and it makes other people laugh, and that works for me. There are times when it's one thing if you make a joke about somebody else. And again, I'm not going to, there's a whole thing about context, which we don't always look at.
Right, of course.
Whatever this topic is, there's a way of getting into this topic that's just nasty and mean and a waste of time and cruel. And there's a way of getting into it with the right context where it might be enlightening or let's say a teaching moment as well as a laughing moment. But that's a different conversation. But if I'm saying something about myself and somebody else is, tells me that it upsets them because of something, that is an issue for them, I don't know how to deal with that.
Yeah.
Because I feel we need to be honest about our own story, and I'm not looking to hurt anybody else.
Agreed.
By showing some side of myself or illuminating a part of my screwed upness.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I know what you mean. And it's weird because it's like, anytime I don't mind reading anything about comedy or a comic or comics in general, but I loathe and detest when somebody writes a piece and goes, I stopped watching whatever it is and it's like, I don't want to hear your review then. You know what I mean? Like if you're not getting the full context of something in order to, really write a review on it, then what's the point? And then the other side of that too is I find when people write, like they always say comedians or comics in general can't take criticism. And I always think that's exactly. I always laugh. Yeah, exactly. And I'm like, that's insane. But it's a funny way to, for that narrative on the other side of it, people who aren't involved in it or don't necessarily like it at all, kind of like to say, because it makes us look like, it's just this tit for tat shit, right? But I find it interesting because it's like we always take it, like in we're like the epitome of rejection in life, and then also in this business. But the funny thing is, I find that the way stuff's written now about comedy in general is like, it's never from like, this is my take, I didn't like, and what I thought. It's, here's what it was. If you disagree with it, you're a piece of shit, and then you're just like, fuck, I didn't know I was in it. You know what I mean? Like, you're like, I enjoyed this thing. I feel like it's such a weird shift. And I don't know if you find that.
I think in an odd way, this goes back to what we said at the very beginning of your show being called Dystopia. If you look at the 20th century, it started, we thought like the worst thing we thought that was going to happen was that all our computers were going to stop working. Which we now know would have been a godsend,
right?
It might have been the best thing that could ever happen. But so the year starts, and there's the 2000 election, which was a nightmare, and then there's 9/11, which was a nightmare, and you go through this. This has been a century to deal with, and then over the last few years. And I can't imagine how this has happened, but we are just bringing up hatred every day, and there are a couple of things that really make me crazy about trying to read anything, trying to learn anything. Rule number one: if you see anything that purports to be news or information, if it has the words "this could happen," "this might happen," "this may happen," about, a politician, a celebrity, a vaccine, whatever.
Right.
If those words are in it, it's garbage.
Yes.
Because that's just clickbait, do this and you might grow 4 skulls, and I might not,
right.
Or I might, end up looking like, Sharon Stone tomorrow, and that's fine by me. But, so because everyone needs to somehow rise above the 50 million other things that are online, you have to get meaner, you have to get louder, you have to get crazier, and you have to have something in there that is going to make people want to see this, because number 2 is really scary. Always, whatever the story is, number 2 is always scary.
Right.
And
that's true.
Number 2 is usually number 2. And, so I'm tired of this is not about deciding that facts are fake. This is about deciding that we don't get to hear facts.
Yeah.
You know, and that what is there's been sort of a plan to, if you get people not to believe anything, then you can sell them anything.
Wow. Yeah, that's a really good way to put it.
You know, and you know, it pisses. I mean, I'm going in a real tangent away from comedy here. I'm sorry, but
no, it's fine. This is great.
It makes me angry that buying anything online is easier and more secure than voting.
Oh yeah.
You know, why is that? Well, because selling stuff is more important to us than people's votes being counted.
Yeah. Everything they tell you you can't do when it benefits you politically, you seem to be able to do in every other aspect of life.
Right. Right. You know, so it's like I'm sort of watching what's going on, and it's like, oh, you know, so.
I think the worst too is that we've all become way more aware of it. There's no way not to be. Like and it's hard to kind of like, you know, live your life while knowing that, you know, there's all this other shit actually working against you. Where before, when you didn't have any of this, you were just like, everything's coming up me, you know, like it didn't matter.
And the other side of this sort of thing though is I am so like I wish I could think of her name, but I was sent an Australian comedy festival video of a transgender woman comic. It was the funniest thing I've seen in years.
Oh, I wonder who the hell it could be.
I want inclusion in comedy. You know, that's the other thing. I don't want us to be all set against each other.
Right.
You know, I want to see everybody. I want to hear everybody's stories. I want everybody to make us laugh.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
You know, again, cliche number 41, but it's true. You know, when you laugh, you learn things.
Oh
when
yeah.
you bought something, it's like, I'm not going to listen to that.
Right. Oh yeah, it's the best. Laughter is the best delivery system for anything like that, because you're just thinking about it days and days after.
Yeah, and
it's layered.
And that's what we need. And sometimes doing that is going to offend someone.
Mm-hmm.
And whereas I have no patience for, you know, well, I'm going to come out here and I'm just going to piss everybody off because that's going to show me that I'm edgy.
Yeah, that's annoying.
Crap. But you have to, it's, you know, again, you have to cross lines.
Yeah.
You have to, because then you find out what's, you know, where honesty is.
Right. And there should be an hour of,
like, you know, I'm being Dr. Moskowitz here, and I'm
sorry. No, I appreciate it being said too. And plus you've had such an extensive career. It's nice to know that, like, you know, have somebody to talk to about it who knows like just so much more. That's another thing too. I feel like for some reason we dismiss people even though they've had way more experiences, way more like they're like, as soon as somebody comes up with something that they don't know, they're like, you're wrong. And it's like, really? Do you see the life they've lived? How is that fucking possible?
Well, quite honestly, that's something I'm really proud and grateful of, is that, you know, I started writing professionally. I think the first time I got paid to write something, I was 12 or 13.
Wow. What was it?
And it was a story for a magazine, you know.
Nice.
And awesome. and I was writing little comedy bits and sketches, and, you know, that we do in the yard and all that stupid stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But it's, you know, I am now, you know, I am a woman over 50 and I'm still working.
Yeah.
You know, and that I'm real proud of that. You know, I'm not working, you know, as much on things that I'd like to, Ted Lasso, but I'm
cutting that all together. Don't worry. It's going to be right in succession.
Give me a piece of shortbread and then, but you know, it's because that's another thing is ageism, especially ageism for those of us who are vaginal Americans, you know, that's just got to stop, because, you know, and I'm not a Karen, you know.
Well, do you know Carol Montgomery?
I know her work.
Okay, yeah, she's been doing. I mean,
I've seen those shows.
Yes,
I've seen some of those shows. They're my friends Monica Piper and Wendy Liebman.
Oh,
and,
yes,
you know,
I love Wendy.
Amazing women, brilliant women.
Friends too. Yeah, and that's what I was getting. Like Carol and I've known Carol forever, and it's just great that she's doing all that.
Yeah, it's fabulous, just fabulous, and they need someone who does comedy and music in those shows.
I will. Yeah, I'll let her know. I will also send her that as well.
Yeah.
This is going to be an audition reel now.
Exactly. Hi. Would you like an up tempo? Memories. Like the corners of our mind.
Oh my God. Well, I've kept you for a little over an hour. I've got 2 more questions left. Are you good with? Can I ask you those?
Oh, throw me anything.
Oh, excellent. Okay. So we ask everybody these questions. So the first one is, if you can go back in time and speak to your younger self, what piece of advice would you give that would help you out today?
Just get over it. Just get over it. I spent my entire life, years and years and years, being so afraid to say anything to anybody.
Mm-hmm.
It's totally stupid.
Love it.
There is a line in my current show that I start the show with. I come out, if you're nice, you walk out and people are applauding.
Mm-hmm.
And I just say, how wonderful that is, but it's conflicting for me,
right?
Because I'm fueled by self-loathing, but by the same token, I never want to disappoint anybody, so I'm basically I fake orgasms when I masturbate because I don't want to disappoint anybody.
That's great.
So that stop that. That's what I would say to my younger self. That and put the Bosco down. Put the chocolate down.
I love that. And the other thing is what in your life had to end in order for you to wind up where you are now, and it can be good or bad.
Ooh.
And it does not also have to be about your career. It can be anything. Yeah. Also one of my favorite shows.
I hope this is an answer to that, but I think about this a lot. There's a lot of times when you think about, all those friggin' roads not traveled, and it's like, oh, if I had done this then, I might have gotten that job, which would have led to this, which would have led to this,
Right.
I'm, if the police hadn't come in during my audition, maybe I would have. And the thing is, this is going to be so goopy, and I apologize, but it's like I like my life right now. It's taken me a long time to be in this life, and I dated so many incredibly horrific men, but I met this guy over here who's like just the most wonderful man in the world, and I met him because I was doing the dumbest job in the world.
Wow.
For Sony Pictures TV. It wasn't dumb, but it was just bizarre. They would send me to strange places in the world to supervise television in languages I didn't understand.
What?
And I was in Belgium working on Flemish sitcoms.
Okay.
I know phlegm. I do not know Flemish. And,
right. Yeah, I was gonna say what you gotta.
And I was like, what am I doing here? But because of that, I happened to go to a lunch, where I met this person, and because of that job, coming back, I was going to go through London, and this person was in London, and he said, "Oh, call me and we'll have dinner." And that was, 23 years ago, and we've been together ever since. And if I had taken any of those other roads, that when I look back, like, well, maybe that might have led to something. But I like where I am now. So all the stupid, ridiculous, horrible, dumb, batshit crazy things I did over the years got me here now.
That's beautiful. I like that.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I know exactly what you mean too, because it's like I think the curiosity of what, like, even through shit that's happened to me that's been really bad, I think I've always had a healthy enough curiosity to keep going. Like, it's got to be something else around the corner. You know what I mean? Like, this sucks now, but what's gonna come? Next, even if it's kind of shitty, you're like, fuck, what else? Even at that point, you're like, well, what the fuck else could happen to me? Yeah, that's awesome. Well, I just want to thank you so much for coming on, and this has been a blast. And if you want, can you hang out backstage for a little bit? We're just we're gonna wrap up and be done in like 2 seconds.
This is where the real stuff comes.
Exactly. We'll keep that going backstage. We'll just record without anybody.
Brett Goldstein shows up, and we have shortcake. It's gonna be great.
Seriously, thank you so much for doing this. We really love it.
Thank you, guys.
Dystopia tonight.